What's up guys, Matt
and Blake
from the Football Boots team, and today we're going to be bursting your bubble because we're going to be running through the top 10 biggest rip-offs of the boot market of right now, and that's because not every pair of boots on the market is perfect. So stay tuned and see if your boot is one of the rip-offs in our top 10. So our first rip-off pair of boots, unfortunately, is the X16.1, and I know a lot of you guys out there actually have this model, but let me tell you, in terms of profit margins that the brands are making, Adidas are probably making the most from their X16.1, and that is because the craftsmanship and materials is just so low. Trust me, they're selling them for what, like 160, 70, 80 pounds around that mark. They're making a lot of money off these boots. Now, what's another problem with this specific model?
Now, don't get me wrong, the X16 Plus Pure Chaos is a very good football boot, but when you talk about the X16.1, the synthetic version, and the leather version as well, you're talking about really poor quality upper. For me, if I had the option of choosing the X16.1 leather or a synthetic version, leather any day of the week, and that is the rip-off. Just don't get the X16.1 synthetic version, get the leather version.
So next up is another Adidas boot. Guys at the 3-Stripe brand, get your act together. That's 2 rip-offs in a row now for you guys. And it's the Adidas A17 Plus Pure Control. That is the rip-off coming next. And the reason for that is it's £30 more expensive than the 17.1 Primeknit, which comes with laces, which is obviously the better boot.
Yes, I mean £230 for a Pure Control and £200 for a Primeknit. A laceless football boot, yes, kids, you might want to get that. Pogba, Rakitic, Ozil, they're pretty much the only players that wear the Pure Control. But the Primeknit has laces. It's a much better football boot overall in terms of performance.
So our third rip-off, let's move to the swoosh of Nike. And Nike, what are you up to? Did you know that the High Phantom 3DF and the Low Cut Phantom 3, £60 price difference?
Really?
250 for the DF and 190 for the Low Cut. And for me personally, I think the Low Cut's better.
£250 for a High Phantom 3 DF. Come on, you're adding £60 to a football boot just for a bit of fly-knit collar. I mean, if I had the DF, I would cut the collar, but no, you can just get the low cut edition. I'm pretty sure you did it too.
Yeah, I would do that. For me, I just think it's actually the better boot. Now, the reason I think it's the better boot, they're incredibly similar, but I think the actual fit around the ankle and the low cut is actually a little bit tighter than what you get from the diamond fit collar, which is a little bit controversial.
Yes, I know.
Because although the collar does actually go up the ankle, I just think the heel cut with the low cut is actually a little bit stiffer, which in this situation is actually good for lockdown and responsiveness. So we've had Adidas, we've had Nike, but now it's time for Puma. Now they've probably got the biggest rip-off pair of boots in the market of right now, and also maybe of all time. Now that is the Evo Speed 17 SL. Absolutely ridiculous pair of boots, £190 and only lasts for about 10 games. What is going on there?
If you have a boot which is going to last for 10 games, I think it should be £50. Nothing more than that. Professionals don't even wear it as well. Griezmann, Aguero and Royce, they wear the SLS, which is £180 and the much more durable boot. So the Evo Speed SL is one of the biggest rip-offs, almost the biggest rip-off of all time.
And at the end of the day, does it make that much difference? It is crazy lightweight, where it's like 100 grams. Is that going to make you quicker? Absolutely not. So what's the point in getting a pair of boots for £190 for 10 games? Just get the SLS or even a Mercurial Vapor or Adidas X. So we're going to stick with Puma again, and this time looking at their Evo Touch Probe. £200 for this model, so it's very expensive, but why is it a rip-off?
It is a rip-off. £200 for a leather football boot. There's a lot of alternatives cheaper than the Evo Touch. You've got the Tempo Legend 6, arguably the best leather boot on the market at the moment. K-leather upper with no stitching, £160. And Adidas's offerings of the X and the Ace leather, both £160 as well. Almost better options than the synthetic versions, but the Evo Touch, £40 more for pretty much the same level of quality as the Tempo Legend or the Ace or the X leather. Maddie, what do you think of that?
Well, I think that is too expensive. £200 for the Puma Evo Touch is probably too much, especially compared to those other ones. But let me tell you, there's a little bit of a rumour going around that the Evo Touch is on its way out. It's been around for hardly even a season, and it sounds like Puma are going to chop it up altogether and bring out a brand new silo. So our next rip-off to have a look at, I'm going to ask you a question. £100 in your back pocket, you're walking around town, you go into a sports shop, and what are you going to buy with that £100? The Nike Tempo Legacy or the Nike Premier?
Well, the Premier has one of the highest quality uppers on a football boot for just £100. Really good value for money. Get over to the Tempo Legacy, it's got calf leather. So the Legend 6 has K-leather, the Legacy is calf leather. It's not the highest quality, so Premier straight away from me.
So for me in this situation, rather than getting a scaled down football boot like the Legacy, go for the Premier, a great idea, because in terms of quality, materials and craftsmanship, I just think it's a little bit higher, and you can definitely say that again for Adidas's Copa Mundial over their X leather and also Ace leather. Are they going to be as performance enhancing to responsiveness and lockdown? Probably not, but in terms of comfort and quality, definitely better. So we're sticking with Nike for our next rip-off, and that's because we're looking at the Mercurial Veloce 3. And is there any different compared to the even more scaled down Victory 6? Talk us through it.
Well kids, if you want a collar and if you want to look like Ronaldo, you get the Victory or you get the Veloce. But the Victory compared to the Veloce, there's hardly any differences. They've both got the same Flyknit don't fit collar on a mostly synthetic boot. Sole plates are slightly different, but they're virtually the same. In terms of performance, I'd definitely go for the Victory over the Veloce. It's about half the price you're getting for the Victory than the Veloce. So definitely get the Victory 6 if you want a collar and you want to look like Ronaldo.
And that's pretty much what you're going to be seeing from Nike as well. So the Victory 6 is the first double scaled down boot to have a collar. So in upcoming releases, don't be surprised to see a very scaled down high venom with a collar, and also Magista as well. So if you do want the collar but don't want to spend a lot of money, then definitely don't just go for the first scale down, look at the second. So sorry to say Nike, but it's you guys once again who are ripping off the consumers with your sole plates. Now, £250, if you've got that much money to pay for a pair of boots, then lucky you. But which sole plate do you actually go for? SG Pro or Anti-Clog? Well, they're actually exactly the same price. So for me, I'll just go for the Anti-Clog. It's got all their technology. Last season, they were so expensive, the price has gone down. So if you had £250, SG Pro or Anti-Clog, I'll go for the Anti-Clog personally, but you've got a little bit of an issue with it.
Especially on the Superfly. Now the Superfly has probably one of the most innovative sole plates. It's got that nylon chassis, it sort of mirrors the shape of your foot. Very, very responsive on that sole plate. But take that sole plate out and put Anti-Clog in, which is pretty much a solid plate. You see it on the Tempo, the Magista and the Hybrid. That same Anti-Clog sole plate is on all Anti-Clog boots. It's not going to be as responsive as the one with the nylon chassis. So that is my issue there. I would go for the SG Pro over the Anti-Clog sole plate.
Our next rip-off to have a look at is a boot by Adidas, their Copper 17.1. Now this type of budget is what most footballers out there are going to be willing to pay, £150 for the Copper 17.1. But I've got a bit of an issue with the Copper 17.1 being £150, and that's because there's some other boots on the market at the same price or even less, or maybe a little bit more, which I personally think the quality is so much higher.
So on the TV you can see here, you can see the Morelli Neo, £140, such good value for money. It's one of the highest quality leather uppers you can get. You've got the Pantofola Lazzarini, £100, brilliant again. Also the Nike Premier, the Tempo Legend 6, Ace Leather and X Leather are going to be a bit more responsive than the Copper 17.1, but they'll be £160, so just £10 more. I'd go for something like the Legend 6 over the Copper 17.1 any day of the week. So the Copper 17.1, very similar to the Gloro, it's almost a scaled down boot, but they price it as a really sort of pro level boot. It's not a pro level boot. You go for something like the Lazzarini, the Neo, or the Legend 6, you get more performance for value for money.
So our last rip-off of the video pretty much sums up the entire boot market right now, and that's because almost every pair of elite tier boots are a rip-off. Now the big reason for this is they're so expensive to start out with, but just wait a month. If you really like the brand new Superfly, you love the colorway, just literally sit back, keep your money for a month, and then they're going to be reduced, going from like £250 down to maybe 200, 190. Just save some money. What's some of the biggest discounts you can get right now?
Or something like the Evo Power Vigor. I would never buy a Vigor at £230 full price. I'll wait until it goes completely half price, because Puma, it's not the most popular boot range. There's always going to be Evo Powers, and they usually put them cheap in say 2 or 3 months. I don't know about you, Maddie, but I've never bought a football boot at full price, even if it was a boot I really, really wanted, or a limited edition boot. Wait for a few weeks or even months just to get the boot that you really want.
So there it is guys, a video for a lot of you guys that you probably didn't want to hear, because I can almost guarantee that some of you have some of the boots that we actually featured in the list, but we obviously had our reasons for that. We're not saying they're bad boots, we're either saying they're a little bit too expensive or there's some better alternatives out there. But for you, what's the biggest rip-off so far?
Well, on the boot market, there are actually a lot of rip-offs you can get, but there are also a lot of good value for money football boots. A really good value for money football boot is the Hybrid Phantom 3 low cut, but a really bad rip-off is the Hybrid Phantom 3 DF. What about you, Maddie? Well,
very similar to the high venom situation. I'm going to say that the Pure Control at £230 is the biggest rip-off, because you can get almost the identical same boot in the Primeknit with laces for £30 cheaper. But that pretty much wraps up the video, guys, so thanks for watching as always.
We'll see you next time.